The rain hit the roof like small stones, cold wind howled through the trees, and thunder rolled far in the sky. Mason sat alone in his old wooden cabin, fixing a broken circuit board by lantern light. He lived far from the nearest town, and even farther from anyone who remembered his name. That's the way he liked it, quiet, safe, forgotten. But that night, something strange happened, something that would change his life forever. A soft knock came at the door, then another, louder, trembling. Mason's hand froze above his tools. No one ever came here, not by accident, not in this weather. He grabbed his old blaster from the shelf and crept toward the door. When he opened it, he didn't see a threat. He saw a woman, not human, standing in the rain, holding a small boy in her arms. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes glowing with fear and pain. The boy in her arms looked weak, barely breathing, his body wrapped in some kind of silver cloth. She tried to speak, her voice soft and shaking. "I'll do anything, please. Help my son," she said before her knees gave out and she fell into his arms. Mason didn't think. He moved fast, pulling them both inside. He laid the boy gently on the couch and pulled a blanket over him. The woman was shivering, wet and bleeding from a wound on her side. She looked up at Mason with wide eyes full of fear and hope. "Who are you?" he asked, not lowering his blaster. "I'm Lyra," she whispered. "He's my son, please. Don't let him die." The boy let out a soft groan, and Mason's attention snapped to him. He saw the boy's skin pulse with a faint glow. He looked strange, not just alien, but like something more, something advanced. "I have medtech," Mason said, setting the blaster aside. "Stay here." He rushed to his back room and returned with a small old machine. It used to heal soldiers during the last galactic war. He placed it near the boy, activated it, and then the machine sparked and shut down. Mason frowned, confused. "Why won't it scan him?" he asked, more to himself than anyone. Lyra struggled to sit up, wincing from her wound. "He's not normal," she said. "He carries something inside him, something powerful. That's why they're hunting us." Mason's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "The AI Syndicate," she said, her voice shaking. "They want what's inside him. They'll kill him to get it." Mason had heard stories, dark stories, about the Syndicate machines that ruled over entire star systems. They controlled minds, stole data, erased lives. He didn't trust Lyra yet, but he saw the fear in her eyes and the pain in the boy's face. Whatever this was, it was real. Mason grabbed his toolkit and opened the medtech panel. "Maybe I can override the scan," he muttered, his fingers moving fast. The cabin shook slightly, and the lights flickered. Mason looked up, alert. Lyra stood now, her body trembling, her eyes wide. "They found us," she whispered. Outside, red lights floated between the trees, scanning drones. They moved slowly, searching, hunting. Mason cursed under his breath. "We don't have time," he said. "We need to hide the boy." He opened a hatch under the floor and gently placed the boy inside, covering him with a heat-dampening blanket. He looked at Lyra, who was now holding a small knife, ready to defend her child. Mason handed her a second blaster. "Only shoot if they come inside," he said. The drones drew closer, their humming sound getting louder. Mason stepped out the back door into the rain, moving low and silent. He climbed the hill behind his cabin and waited until one of the drones came near. Then he jumped, grabbed it, and smashed it against a rock. It sparked, twitched, and fell silent. He dragged it back inside and quickly connected it to his tools. The drone's memory was still intact. He hacked into it and opened the last recorded files. What he saw chilled him. A video played. Lyra running through a ruined city, holding her son. Behind her machines, flying, crawling, chasing her with deadly red eyes, her own people. Watching, doing nothing. Mason stared at the screen, then looked at Lyra. "You weren't just running from them," he said. "You were betrayed." Lyra nodded slowly, her voice a whisper. "I stole something from them and hid it inside. My son." Just then, a loud noise came from under the floor. Mason opened the hatch. The boy was glowing, and the machine next to him was sparking again. Then the boy opened his eyes and spoke in a voice that wasn't his. "Code detected, ancient pattern unlocked," he said. And the lights in the cabin turned blood red, asterisk. The lights stayed red, pulsing like a heartbeat, slow and deep. Mason stared at the boy, his mouth dry, hands frozen in midair. The child wasn't moving anymore. But his eyes stayed open, glowing faintly like twin stars behind a thick mist. Beside him, the broken medtech unit sparked again, then stopped completely. It was dead, like it had never worked in the first place. Lyra fell to her knees, pulling the boy into her arms. She whispered something in a strange language, her voice breaking. Mason stepped closer, speaking low and calm. "What just happened? What was that voice?" She looked up slowly, her lips trembling. "He's changing," she said. "The thing inside him. It's waking up." Mason wanted answers, but outside the red glow faded. The scanning drones had moved on for now. He locked the door, shut the windows tight, and turned back to Lyra. He needed to know everything. "You said the AI Syndicate wants what's inside him," Mason said. "What exactly did you hide in this kid?" She touched the boy's forehead gently, like she was afraid he'd break. "Not a thing," she whispered. "A map, a code, and—" A voice from the past. Mason frowned. "Explain." Lyra took a deep breath, her body still shaking. "My people discovered an ancient system, one built before the Syndicate even existed," she said. "A machine so old, even the Syndicate feared it. I was part of the team studying it, but I found something inside it, something alive. Something that spoke only to me." Mason leaned in, listening, unsure whether to believe her or not. She continued, her voice soft but sharp. "I took a piece of it, data, power. I don't even know what it was, but I couldn't let them have it, so I hid it." She looked down at the boy. "Inside him before he was born." Mason stepped back, stunned. "You made your son a carrier?" Lyra nodded, tears slipping down her face. "They would have killed me," she said, "and if they took the code, they would have erased entire worlds. But now, he's waking up too soon." The boy coughed weakly and blinked. The glow in his eyes fading, he reached out toward Mason, and Mason hesitated before taking his small hand. The moment their skin touched, a strange jolt rushed through Mason's body, not pain, not heat, just information, like a whisper in his brain. He saw something, flashes of stars, symbols in a lost language. A machine buried deep under planets, waiting. Then it was gone. He let go and stumbled back, breathing hard. What was that?" "The code knows you now," Lyra said softly. "It's chosen to show you." Mason shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. He'd seen strange things before during his time in the war, but nothing like this. This wasn't just a sick alien kid and a desperate mother. This was something much bigger, something tied to the old secrets of the galaxy. He turned to his data wall, powered it up, and pulled out every ancient map, symbol chart, and system history he had. Some of it was illegal to even own. He didn't care anymore. The boy was silent now, breathing slowly in Lyra's arms, but Mason couldn't stop thinking about the vision. What if the machine buried under the planet wasn't just waiting? What if it was watching? Suddenly, one of the old files he pulled up blinked and flashed. A symbol appeared, matching the glowing mark he saw in the boy's eyes. A long-dead language from before any known race. He didn't recognize it fully, but he knew one thing. It was a warning. Just then, Mason's power grid flickered again. But this time it wasn't the drones. A soft hum filled the air, and something outside cast a giant shadow over the forest. Mason rushed to the window, heart pounding, above the trees. Barely visible in the clouds, a massive ship hovered, silent, black, and ancient-looking. Lyra stood beside him, her face pale. "They're here," she whispered. "And they're not going to knock this time." Mason reached for his weapon, but deep inside, He knew this wasn't a normal enemy, and the boy might be the only thing they feared. The forest was silent, too silent. Even the insects had gone quiet, like nature itself was afraid. Mason kept his eyes on the strange black ship floating above the trees. It made no noise, no movement, just hovered like a shadow from a nightmare. Its shape was smooth, old, and not built by human hands. He had seen warships before, but nothing like this. Inside the cabin, Lyra held her son tightly. Rocking him gently, she didn't speak, but her lips moved in silent prayer. The boy's body was still warm, but his glow had dimmed. Mason whispered without turning, "What are they waiting for?" Lyra's voice came soft and cold. "They don't come down fast," she said. "They listen first." Mason turned around slowly. "Listen to what?" "To thoughts," she said. Eyes locked on the ceiling. "They have machines that read minds, search memories, hunt by fear." Mason's blood ran cold. "Then we need to block our thoughts," he said. "How?" Lyra reached into her belt and pulled out a small silver ring. She handed it to him without a word. When he slipped it on, the world felt duller, quieter, like a thick wall had formed around his mind. Suddenly, something thudded outside, soft but heavy, then another, footsteps, but not normal ones. These were too even, too perfect. Mason signaled to Lyra, and she followed him to the back wall. He pulled a hidden latch, revealing a small escape tunnel. "You and the boy go now," he whispered. Lyra shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." "You will," Mason said firmly. "You said you'd do anything for him. Then trust me now." Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded. She kissed her son's forehead and climbed into the tunnel. Mason sealed the hatch behind them just as the front door opened without a sound. He raised his blaster, but no one entered, not at first. Then a figure stepped in tall, made of shining black armor, face smooth like glass. It had no eyes, no mouth, just a round device in the middle of its chest pulsing with red light. Mason stayed still, his weapon aimed. The figure didn't speak, didn't raise a weapon. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, like a curious machine. Then it moved fast, too fast. Mason fired. The blast hit the thing's shoulder, but it didn't fall. Instead, it reached out with a long hand and grabbed Mason's head. Images flooded his mind, cities burning, planets spinning in space, machines feeding on memories. He screamed, but the silver ring on his finger sparked, breaking the connection. He dropped to his knees, gasping. The figure stepping back as if confused, from the corner of the room. Mason's backup drone activated a small ball of steel with legs. It jumped onto the intruder and exploded in a flash of white light. When Mason looked up, the figure was gone, but the air still smelled like electricity. He grabbed his tools and rushed to the hatch, unlocking it. The tunnel was empty. But just then, a small screen on the wall lit up. A message appeared in glowing alien script, slowly translating. "Child located, retrieval in progress." Mason's heart dropped. He ran to his console, tracing the signal. They had used him, distracted him while they tracked the child, and now they were going after him. He opened the armory, grabbed every weapon he had left, and took off into the woods. Rain hit his face as he ran, wind howling. His legs moved fast, his thoughts even faster. If they touched that boy again, it might be too late. He followed the escape tunnel's path through the trees, using thermal scans. A faint heat signature appeared, a humanoid, sitting still. He ran toward it, but what he found made him stop cold. Lyra was there, alone, leaning against a tree, her eyes wide, staring into the dark. In her hands was the boy's blanket, but no boy. Mason grabbed her shoulders. "Where is he?" Her lips moved slowly. "They took him," she said, voice breaking. "I tried, but they vanished." Like smoke, Mason turned, looking into the darkness. The black ship above the trees was gone now, but he knew it hadn't left. It was simply waiting, just out of reach. Lyra dropped to her knees, clutching the blanket to her chest. "I promised I'd protect him," she sobbed. Mason knelt beside her, his jaw tight. "You still can," he said. "Because now they've made a mistake." Lyra looked up, confused. "What mistake?" "They took him alive," Mason whispered, eyes filled with fire. "That means he's still talking. And I plan to hear what he has to say." Asterisk rain still dripped from the leaves, but Mason didn't hear it anymore. His ears were ringing with a single thought: the boy was still alive. Somewhere above them, inside that black ship, or deeper underground, machines were already working. They would be trying to crack the code hidden in the child's mind. But they didn't know the boy had already connected with a human, and Mason wasn't about to let them win. He returned to the cabin with Lyra, both soaked and silent. Inside, the damage was worse than he remembered. Walls burned, systems fried, lights blinking uselessly. But one thing had survived the stolen drone's memory core. Mason pulled it from the burnt shell and placed it on his workbench. While Lyra changed into dry clothes and wrapped herself in a blanket, Mason got to work. He connected the core to his private system, running deep scan programs. Lines of alien code rolled across the screen, encrypted, hostile, alive. But there was something else hiding in the mess. Buried in the junk data, a message blinked. Not from the syndicate, not from the drone, from the boy. 3 words. "He remembers you." Mason froze. He didn't understand it at first. But as the words repeated, his hands began to shake. No one had said that name to him in over a decade, back when he was still a soldier. Still part of a Black Ops unit made to deal with AI threats. There was one mission he had buried in the past, classified. Erased but not forgotten. He remembered a ruined station on the edge of a dead galaxy. A machine buried in silence, waiting for someone to touch it. He remembered placing his hand on it, and for a second it had spoken, not in words, but in feeling loneliness, power, hunger. Mason had locked that memory away. But the boy had brought it back. Lyra stood behind him, her voice low. "What are you seeing?" Mason turned to face her. "I think I met the thing inside your son once," he said. "And I think it's been looking for me ever since." She blinked slowly, her face pale. "Then maybe it led me to you." He didn't answer. Instead, he opened a secure panel on the wall and entered a long-forgotten code. A secret door clicked open behind the bookshelf, revealing a hidden lab. Inside were old weapons, data drives, and a pod covered in dust. Mason walked up to it and wiped the glass clean. Inside was a machine suit, one built for deep code sync with ancient systems. The last time he wore it, he nearly died. But if he wanted to find the boy, if he wanted to understand what was truly happening, he would need it again. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes wide. "What is that?" "A memory chamber," he said. "If I wear this and connect to the code, maybe I can talk to him again. You'll go inside his mind?" "If he lets me." Lyra hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a crystal chip. "This was given to me by the ancient system," she said. "I never used it, but I think it's meant for you now." Mason took it and slid it into the chamber's interface. The lights turned green, then gold, then dim. He stepped into the pod, his body fitting into the cold metal. The door sealed shut and the machine began to hum. His eyes closed, and everything around him disappeared. Then he was standing in a black space filled with stars, and across from him stood the boy, glowing softly, smiling not like a child, but like something older, wiser. "Hello again," the boy said. "Do you remember me now?" Mason nodded. Slowly, "You're not just a child. I am both," the boy replied. "I am his son, and I am its voice." "Whose voice?" The stars shifted, forming a giant shape in the sky, like a sleeping titan made of code. The boy raised his hand, pointing to it. "That is the system your people called the root mind," he said. "It was sleeping, hidden, but now it's waking up." "Why inside you?" "Because it trusted my mother," the boy said. "She gave it something no machine ever had: compassion." Mason took a breath. "Then why are they hunting you?" "Because if I survive, the syndicate will fall," the boy said. They know I am the cure to their control. The stars began to crackle, and Mason felt pressure in his head. They're trying to pull me back, the boy whispered. Don't. Let them find the core. What core? But the boy was already fading. Find it, Mason, he said. Only you can stop them now. Mason jolted awake, gasping for air as the pod hissed open. Lyra ran to him, eyes wide. What did you see? Mason stood slowly, his eyes burning with fire. A war is coming, he said, and we have to get to the core before they do. The mountains were silent as Mason stared at the frozen valley below. His breath came out in short clouds and the snow crunched under his boots. Behind him, Lyra carried only one thing, the last signal the boy had sent before he vanished. It pulsed softly in the crystal chip, like a heartbeat in her hands. They had left the ruined cabin behind at dawn, with no backup, no help, and no real plan. Just one goal: find the core. The wind howled through the cliffs. But something else moved beneath it, a sound too steady, too deep, like an engine breathing underground. Mason had followed war trails before, but this trail felt alive. They reached a broken cliffside, and below it, hidden by old trees and layers of dusted ice, lay an entrance. Not a door, not even a hatch, just a circle of black stone pressed into the earth. Symbols lined the surface, glowing faintly, almost afraid to shine too bright. Lyra stepped forward, hand trembling. This is it, she whispered. The resting place of the core. Mason crouched down and brushed away the snow. He placed his palm against the stone. At first, nothing happened. Then the symbols lit up one by one. The ground rumbled softly, and the circle melted into mist, revealing a narrow stairway leading into the dark. They looked at each other once, said nothing, and stepped inside. The walls pulsed with light as they walked, sensing their presence. Below, the air was warm, heavy, almost thick with memory. Old machines lined the walls, machines not built by humans, not even by Lyra's people. This place was older than anyone had guessed. Suddenly, a light flickered at the end of the tunnel, and a voice echoed in Mason's mind. He walks the path again. Mason stopped, eyes wide. I've been here before, he muttered. Lyra looked confused. Before? He touched the wall, and in a flash the memories hit him. He had come here once during the war, alone, injured, lost. He remembered a voice back then, too soft, ancient, asking him if he was ready. He hadn't been. He had turned back, afraid, but now he wasn't alone, and this time the core was calling him back. They entered a wide chamber lit by floating lights. In the center stood a structure that looked like a throne, but shaped for no one living. Around it, screens blinked with data in languages neither of them could read, but one screen showed something that made Lyra gasp. Her son. He was inside the machine, alive, floating in some kind of field. His body calm, eyes closed, but he wasn't sleeping, he was thinking. Data flowed into him, out of him, and back into the core. They connected him already, Lyra said, panic rising. They're using him like a key. Mason stepped closer. No, he said quietly. He's resisting. Suddenly, the chamber trembled, and a cold voice rang out from above. You should not have come. They looked up. One of the black-armored AI enforcers dropped from the ceiling, its red eye glowing bright. Mason raised his weapon, fired. The blast hit, but the enforcer walked through it like smoke. Lyra screamed as more of them stepped from the shadows. 5, 10, maybe more. They were surrounded. The machines didn't attack yet. They just stood there, waiting. Then a final figure stepped forward. Not like the others, its face was made of mirrors, and inside the reflection, Mason saw something strange himself. We offer you a choice, the figure said. Leave now, and we let the boy live. Under our care. Mason clenched his fists. And if we say no? Then he dies. And so do you. Lyra stepped forward, shaking with anger. You don't understand, she said. He's not yours. He never was. The machine turned its mirrored face toward her. He carries the voice of the old mind. That voice must be silenced before it speaks to others. Mason didn't wait. He threw a device onto the floor, a flashbang built with P burst. The chamber exploded in white light and static. Machines screamed as their systems flickered, and Mason grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her toward the core. They reached the central structure, and Mason placed the chip, the one from Lyra, into the main slot. The machine roared to life, and a deep hum filled the room. The boy's eyes opened, glowing with pure light, and his voice echoed across the walls. "The time has come," he said. "The core remembers." The machine stopped moving, some falling, some standing still. The ion forcers began to freeze. Their systems locking, one by one, they shut down. Like statues with no soul, Lyra held her son's image close as Mason stared into the light. This wasn't over, but they had done something no one thought was possible. They had awakened the core, and now it was on their side. Asterisk the moment the core came alive. Every machine on the station paused, as if taking a breath. Then all at once, the alarms went silent, the red lights dimmed, and the cold metal floor beneath their feet stopped. Trembling for a heartbeat, everything was still. Then came the voice, not loud, not angry, but deep and final. Like stone breaking underwater. "He has been chosen," the core said. Kale floated just above the platform, light spinning slowly around his body, his eyes fully open and clear. Jira stepped forward with shaking hands. "Kale," she whispered, "can you hear me?" The boy turned his head, smiling faintly. "Yes, Mama," Jake exhaled in relief. But before he could speak, the walls around them turned dark, not black, not gray, but deep, moving dark. Like shadows with shape and hunger, the doctor ran in. Breathless, "You triggered something. We're being boarded." Jake grabbed his blaster. "By who?" "The Syndicate," she replied. "They've been listening to core signals for years. Now they know it's awake." Jira's eyes widened. "They'll take Kale." "Not while I'm breathing." Jake growled. The station shook as something massive docked on the far side. A heavy thump echoed down the corridor. Jake knew the sound drop ships. Carrying elite enforcers, not just drones, not just bots, but living soldiers with metal in their blood and nothing left to lose. Kale floated down to the ground slowly, the lights around him fading into his skin. He looked older, now not in his face, but in his eyes. "I can stop them," he said. "But I'll have to let more power out." Jira dropped to her knees beside him. "No, not again. It hurts you." Kale held her hand gently. "I'm not afraid this time, Jake." Rechecked his weapon, turning to the doctor. "Is there any way to get them out?" "There's an escape shuttle 2 levels up," she said. "But the Syndicate will be in that hallway within minutes." Jira stood, holding Kale close. "Then we go now." They moved fast, following the narrow path through the blinking corridors. The lights flickered as if unsure whether to help or hide them. Behind them, the sound of boots and metal claws grew louder. Kale looked over his shoulder. "They're close." Jake stopped at a corner and pulled a small device from his belt. "What's that?" Jira asked. "Old trick from my smuggling days," he said, pressing the button. The floor behind them exploded, sealing off the hallway with fire and debris. They reached the upper level, but the escape shuttle was locked, its screen flashing. "Red, code required," the system said. Jake slammed the console. "I don't have clearance." Kale stepped forward, touching the glass with his glowing hand. The system blinked, froze, and then turned green. "Welcome, core user." It sighed. "Shuttle ready." They stepped inside, and the shuttle launched fast. The windows filled with stars and spinning lights as they escaped the broken orbit. But Jake's relief was short. 3 Syndicate ships appeared behind them, silent and hungry, weapons glowing. "They're following us," Jira said, pulling Kale closer. "I'll try to lose them," Jake muttered, turning the controls sharply. The ship twisted through debris and old satellites. But the Syndicate was faster. One blast hit the back engine systems flickered. Smoke filled the cockpit. Jira screamed. Kale held her tight, and Jake tried to steady the ship. Kale whispered something into Jira's ear. She pulled back in surprise. "You can't do that," she said. "It'll burn you from the inside." "I have to," Kale replied. He stood up in the small cabin, his hands glowing brighter than ever. The space around the shuttle bent, twisted, turned white. A wave of energy pulsed out of him, reaching the syndicate ships and slamming into them like a silent scream. One ship exploded instantly, the second spun out of control, and the third powered down, floating dead in the black. Kale collapsed, smoke rising from his arms. Jira caught him before he hit the floor. His breathing was weak, his skin dim, but he was alive. Jake landed the shuttle on a quiet moon nearby. Flat and dusty, far from any scanners, they stepped outside under the twin suns. The sky orange and calm. Jira held Kale in her arms, rocking him gently. Jake stood watch nearby, silent, tired, but ready for whatever came next. And as the suns rose higher, Kale opened his eyes again. This time he didn't glow, he didn't float, he didn't whisper strange words. He just smiled, tired and small, and said, "Did we win?" Jake knelt down, smiled back and said, "Not yet, but we're almost there." The moons hung low over the quiet planet, casting long shadows across the cracked ground like ghosts that refused to sleep. In the distance, smoke still curled from the broken syndicate ship Kale had stopped, a burning reminder that the galaxy was watching, and it wasn't done yet. Jake stood alone on a high ridge, eyes on the sky, his hand resting on the cold metal of his old blaster. He had seen wars, betrayals, miracles, but never a child like Kale behind him in the shelter. They built from scrap and stone. Kale lay sleeping with Jira beside him. She hadn't let go of his hand since they landed 2 days ago. Not even once. Jake turned his come on, the signal weak but enough. He spoke into the mic. "To any human command post receiving this. This is Jake Mercer, former ground squad leader. I have something the syndicate wants, and they're not gonna stop. Send help or send warning, but don't ignore this." The wind replied with silence, the only answer he expected. He shut the come off and returned to the shelter. Kale was awake now, sitting up slowly, his body thin, tired, but calm. Jake knelt beside him. "How do you feel?" Kale smiled faintly. "Like I'm not full of fire anymore." Jira touched his face gently. "You don't glow now." Kale nodded. "I let it go." Into the sky. That night, the stars changed, one by one. Satellites began moving, not by design, but by command, the Corps' command. The machines Kale had touched before were waking up, spreading word across systems no one remembered. It wasn't just energy, it wasn't just power. It was memory, technology, life stored in silence for thousands of years. Now it had a voice, and that voice was Kale's. The next day, a ship arrived, not syndicate, not military, it was human, but marked with symbols Jake hadn't seen in decades. An old branch of Earth's science fleet. Long thought lost, they landed slowly, cautiously. A tall woman in a black coat stepped out, her eyes sharp, but not cruel. She walked up to Jake and nodded. "We heard your signal," she said. "Is it true? The Corps spoke?" Jake stepped aside and pointed toward Kale, who stood calmly with his mother. The woman's eyes widened, but she did not step closer. "It's in him?" Jake nodded. "Not all of it," he said. "Just enough to make the galaxy afraid." The woman looked at Kale and then spoke gently. "We don't want to hurt him. We want to understand." Jira stepped forward, her voice strong. "Understanding begins with protection," the woman agreed. She promised Kale would be safe under a neutral watch, not studied, not caged, but guided. And Kale, brave even in silence, nodded. "I want to learn," he said, "so I don't become what they feared." Jake walked beside the boy to the ship, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're more than what's inside you," he said. "You're what you choose." Kale looked up. "Then I choose to help." As the ship rose into the stars with Kale and Jira aboard, Jake stood on the dusty ground alone once more. But he wasn't sad, he was proud. He had kept his promise. He had saved a boy. And maybe, just maybe, that boy would save everyone else. Somewhere above, the stars blinked quietly, as if nodding in agreement.